Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. We're also here tonight, of course, to celebrate a milestone that's been achieved by the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission. This past March, the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission awarded its 10,000th Carnegie Medal. This means they've recognized more than 10,000 single acts in which civilians have placed themselves in peril to try to save the life of a human being. 10,000 times an individual has put his or her life at risk for a fellow human being, often a stranger. We'll hear more about what that means now from Eric Zarin. Eric joined the commission as a member of the executive board in 2015. He became executive director in 2016, following a 25-year career as a special agent with the U.S. Secret Service. At the Carnegie Fund Commission, Eric has turned his talents from tracking down counterfeiters, miscreants, and threats to the country to finding and certify heroes who enrich us. At this time, we'd like to welcome Eric Zarin to the stage.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening once again, and thank you all for joining us for this special event. Before I begin, I would like to especially welcome and recognize the Carnegie Heroes who are here tonight and serve as our constant inspiration. Could I ask them to stand? A very special thank you also to the members of the staff of the Hero Fund Commission, past and present, who are rarely applauded and fundamental to the success that we celebrate this evening. Can I ask you to stand as well, please? Thank you. The false heroes of barbarous man are those who can only boast of the destruction of their fellows. The true heroes of civilization are those alone who save or greatly serve them. These words, written by Andrew Carnegie in 1886 in honor of a young Scottish lad, William Hunter, who lost his life attempting to save a young boy from drowning in the town loch, gave life to a movement, the very same we celebrate tonight, in support of an idea that one individual, acting selflessly in behalf of another, can in itself not only save a life, but give life to hope for our future and the world. 18 years after these words of Carnegie found their place on a memorial stone in Dunfermline, they leapt again from his consciousness to light a flame that burns brightly still in the work of the body that he created to ensure that those who risk or lose their lives through selfless action in behalf of others should be recognized, honored, and kept from further harm. There is much evidence that the Hero Fund, which Carnegie created, and those that would follow in distant lands, were especially dear to Carnegie's heart. More than that, a strong argument could be made that none other of Carnegie's creations so intimately express his private inner self. They were and are expressions of the deep empathy and respect that Carnegie felt for heroes in our society, who would choose to put another's life before their very own welfare. There was no profit to be gained from it, unlike the business world which occupied him earlier in life, no logic to drive it, and scant witnesses to applaud it. And yet, to Carnegie, it was the selfless actions of one individual at one moment in time that surpassed in purity and value all of the world's wealth, with which he was more intimately familiar than most. Carnegie called the Hero Fund his pet child. He alone conceived of it. His only collaborators, the muses of respect and compassion. Calling the Hero Fund the noblest fund in the world, he's closely followed and on occasion interjected into its work throughout the rest of his life to ensure that the capable men to whom he personally entrusted his pet child continued to recognize and support the hero and widow and orphan so that they not suffer. But it is important to remember that which gives the work of honoring heroes wings to fly beyond the here and now, beyond the scene of life-threatening chaos, across continents and even time itself, and that is hope. The hope that is born despite the realities of the challenges of the world, Carnegie's and our own, through the glorious meeting of courage and the ultimate respect for another human being, regardless of cost. If applied over and over again by countless individuals, by communities, by nations, by civilizations, it can only create peace among us. Hate, violence, intolerance, war itself cannot, by definition, exist in such an environment of universal individual selflessness. If we were to apply extreme individual altruism to the exercise of Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, specifically acting according to maxims that we would will to be universal law, what a world it would be. Shortly, the Hero Fund Commission, with the support of so many friends and colleagues, will make presentation of its 10,000th and 10,001st medals. This number, while significant enough in its own right to bring us all together this evening in celebration, is but a fraction of the nominated cases, around 100,000, in the Commission's 114-year history. Now, I ask that you consider that number, quite large as it is, not as a whole, and not from the perspective of hindsight, and not from a distance, measured both in time and space, and not from your quite comfortable seat in this remarkable and stunning and temporarily air-conditioned venue where we find ourselves this evening. Rather, imagine, if you can, and transport yourself, if you dare, to 100,000 points of peril, fear, pain, loss, and the undetermined outcomes of 100,000 horrific scenes where life and death hung in the balance. And consider those who stood their ground or rushed in because they refused to walk away, because they refused to leave a victim without hope. And never forget those among them who never walked or ran or swam out, and thus never returned to the arms of those who loved them. And consider those who were able to get home, but bearing scars, both visible and unseen. Now, as heavy as that leaves our hearts, always remember this above all else, that they did it. Despite the obstacles, the danger, the fear, the self-doubt, the confusion, the peril, they did it. Very often for complete strangers. They cared enough to risk all. We are told, and further professed in the awarding of each Carnegie Medal, that no greater love hath man than this. Do any of us doubt it? Can that realization do anything other than give rise to hope for us, for our world, and for our future? The fact that each hero and each heroic act changes not only those involved, but all who share their experience through their having been honored, without end or limitation, is the real impact and promise of the Hero Fund. And I, for one, believe that no one knew this better than Andrew Carnegie. With this in mind, we begin to more clearly understand it as the cause of his sheer delight, and what delight it would bring him tonight to see his vision of hope extended for the 10,000th and 10,001st time with equal passion to the first. Through all of the years, we've found that the hero and the hero's mind and the hero's heart are truly timeless. And though the cases considered by the fund have evolved from rescues involving horse and buggies to jet planes, and from steamers to power boats, the heroic spirit endures unaltered. Even now, in our disconnected, technology-driven world, reportedly void of human compassion, as it is too often presented, heroes abound. And we need them more than ever. The Hero Fund Commission remains committed to see that they are recognized and supported, and just as importantly, that their stories are told. Through my own work at the Commission, in reading the accounts of heroes, it occurred to me early and often that the heroes which we honor represent compelling and elusive contradictions. They're inherently as different, varied, and diverse as 10,000 people could be, yet in a sense are very much the same. They're rare, but as I've argued, plentiful at the same time. And they are unique, yet also just like the rest of us, at least in terms of what we may be, what we are capable of being at our best. When I think of these heroes, we're humbled. We ask ourselves if we would have done it, if we could have done it. Their courage and sacrifice acts like a mirror into which we cannot help but peer. What do we see in it? Do we see our fears, our insecurities, our limitations and self-doubt? Do we see our capabilities and the possibility that we could actually embody hope for others, as they have done, not only for another in peril, but for all of us by their actions? If we're honest, most of us see all of this at once and even more. I believe Carnegie wanted us to look. I believe he wanted us to note well what we see, the good and bad, ugly and beautiful, tragic and inspiring, to look closely for the sake of the world, of ourselves, and of hope eternal. Perhaps, above all, he hoped that we would see the power of each one, imperfect as we are, to make a difference, to change the world for one moment and for all time, to see, to recognize, and to embrace the undeniable power of one. The last line of Mr. Carnegie's 1904 Deed of Trust establishing the Hero Fund directed that a finally executed roll of the heroes and heroines shall be kept displayed in the office at Pittsburgh. We could think of no more suitable time than the occasion of the Commission's 10,000th award to fulfill in full measure this clear mandate passed on by our founder. We commissioned Mr. John Stevens, a renowned calligraphy artist in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, for the job of creating a roll of heroes and heroines, which will henceforth bear the names of all heroes awarded by the fund. In addition, John created a hand-drawn calligraphic copy of Mr. Carnegie's Deed of Trust, bearing a fitting commemoration of the Commission's 10,000th award. You saw some footage of John's work in progress in the video. We could not be more pleased with John's works of art and will be pleased to display them always as a testament to Mr. Carnegie's vision for the Hero Fund and in celebration of the ongoing fulfillment of its work, which too could be described as a finely executed role. So without further ado,